Hi, I'm Penn from thecreativepenn.com, and this is a quick video clip with author Philippa Ballantine, who has just released Geist. She gives us a few tips on what to do with your first draft and also about fantasy novels. Congratulations on your book. Maybe you could start by telling us a bit about Geist and the series Books of the Order.
Okay, it's coming out with Ace Books. It's out now, and it's a supernatural fantasy set in a world in which the paranormal is just a given. There are possessions and evil things happen, and people take it as read that the Geists exist. And there are this order of deacons who used to be a religious order, but are now dedicated to protecting the Joe Blogs on the street from the awful incursions of these paranormal creatures.
Fantastic. Now, why don't you show us the cover? Gorgeous. Okay, so maybe you could, at the moment it's obviously NaNoWriMo, maybe you could talk a bit about why you love fantasy. Why do you write in fantasy?
Well, fantasy and I go a long way back to when I was a wee kid getting read Lord of the Rings by my dad as a bedtime story. And I've always loved the sheer scope of it. Basically, if you can imagine it, then it can be. So there are no real boundaries like there are in many other genres. And I just, you can be on a planet at the outer rim of the universe, or you can be in an alternate history where Shakespeare met the fairies. So it's just brilliant the way that you can do anything you like within the scope of fantasy. That's why I love it so much.
As I said, it's NaNoWriMo this month. It's November as we're recording this. Maybe you could share some of your top tips, so maybe 3 of your top tips for getting that first draft down, as you're obviously doing lots of that at the moment.
Yeah, I'm working on several things at the moment, but I think for getting the words out, you've got to learn to just keep writing and not look back. When I was first starting writing my first novel, I was stuck in the whole thing where you look back and you edit and then you write a few more words and you go back and edit. And I think especially for Nano, you just have to keep powering forward and not worry about how polished things are. Just keep going forward. I also, one of my other favorite things to do is to include something that includes the senses, either a smell or a color or a sound. And those are really evocative, and I think it helps the reader get inside the head of the person that they're supposed to be empathizing with in the story. And the characters, of course, are the lens through which the readers experience the story. So you've got to create vivid characters, and I think one of the ways you do that is you realize that characters don't have to be perfect. In fact, it's better to have an imperfect character because then people can empathize so much more with them.
Okay, so I'm asking this of authors at the moment because I find it so interesting. You talked a bit about your background with fantasy, but what are the things that feed your imagination that create these characters? So you've written about a lot of supernatural, with Weather Child, you had the sort of New Zealand weather, I suppose, and and then you had Shakespeare and England. So what are the things that really feed your imagination?
Well, I've always said that one of my favorite sources of inspiration has been history. I studied history at university, and I just find it fascinating. I love the History Channel. I love history books. And I find a lot of, not necessarily, except for the Shakespeare, but I don't necessarily pull them straight out and use them. But an example, Geist is sort of based on the Tsarist Russia of the 19th century. And it gives a nice sort of anchor point of realism to go from, and then you can build the fantastical elements around it. But then I also love people. I love just the people that you have in your day-to-day existence. You don't necessarily pull them and make them into the story, so no one gets too worried. I will say I don't do that. But just the way people are and the way they behave in certain situations, and you hear a lot of inspirational stories about people being courageous and brave and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, just people watching is one of my favorite activities.
So where can people find you and Geist online?
Well, the Geist website is booksoftheorder.com. And my website is pjballantine.com, and that's got links to all my websites, all my podcasts, everything Pip related. It's like the hub.
Well, thanks ever so much for your time, Pip, and good luck with the book.
Lovely to be here.